Captain Daniel Hayes sat in the command chair of the human transport vessel as it moved through the empty black space of the Zephyr sector. His team of 12 soldiers sat at their stations, watching the star systems drift past on their screens. The mission was simple. Earth had sent Daniel and his unit to meet with the Valorian Empire, a powerful alien civilization that ruled over a large part of space. Nobody knew if this first meeting would lead to peace or war. Daniel kept his hands steady as he watched the space ahead. The radio crackled with chatter from the Valorian orbital station below. Queen Ashria ruled the Valorian people from her throne on the world called Crystallis. Her kingdom was vast and powerful. The humans wanted to trade with them and live in peace. That was why Daniel had come here with his soldiers. He was a good soldier and a good man. He did not want to fight unless he had to. The first warning came as a bright flash on the screen ahead. Daniel stood up fast. One of his officers, Lieutenant Marcus, shouted from his seat. Something big had blown up in the sky above Crystallis. Daniel could see the explosion on the visual screen now. A massive ship was breaking apart, burning with fire and light. The ship was falling toward the planet below, leaving a trail of smoke and flame across the sky. Daniel knew what this meant. Someone had destroyed a Valorian ship. This was bad. Very bad. The peace mission might be over before it started. He moved to the front of the bridge and stared at the falling wreckage. His soldiers were quiet, waiting for orders. Then Daniel saw something that changed everything. Small objects were falling from the broken ship. Escape pods. People were running from the dying vessel. He counted at least 20 pods, maybe more. They were falling through the upper air, moving down toward the planet. Some would make it. Others would not. The fire was too hot. The speed was too fast. Daniel had seen this before on other worlds. Most of those people would die. But one pod caught his attention. It was smaller than the others, and it was falling differently. It was moving slower, like something was wrong with it. Daniel zoomed the camera on that pod. He looked closer. There was something inside. A shape, something living. Through the view screen, Daniel could see what looked like a small figure. Small and alone. Without thinking about it, Daniel made a decision. He turned to his officers and spoke with a hard voice. "Change course. Now, move us toward that pod. Move fast." Lieutenant Marcus looked at him with worry. "Captain, we should wait for the Valorians. This is their system. We might start an incident." Daniel did not stop moving. He was already walking toward the small launch bay of the transport. "We have maybe 3 minutes before that pod hits the atmosphere. Once it enters, it will burn up. The shielding is damaged. I can see it on the scan. Get a suit ready for me. I am going out." "Captain, that is too dangerous." "You cannot do this," Marcus said. He followed Daniel down the corridor. "The protocols say we should forget protocols," Daniel said. He was already pulling on his heavy spacesuit. The suit was hard and thick, built to keep a human alive in the cold of space. Daniel had used it many times before. He moved fast, his hands pulling the seals tight. His mind was clear. He did not think about the danger. He only thought about the small figure in the pod falling toward fire and death. Daniel climbed into the airlock. He could hear the sound of the ship's engines changing pitch as it turned. Lieutenant Marcus was doing what Daniel asked. The ship was moving toward the falling pod. Daniel watched the numbers on his suit screen. Oxygen levels good. Temperature good. He opened the outer door of the airlock. The cold of space hit him like a wall of ice. He used the small maneuvering pack on his suit to push himself out into the darkness. The stars were all around him. Below, the planet Crystallis was huge and bright. He could see the falling pod now. It was getting close to the burn line, where the air would become so hot and thick that it would turn the pod into fire. Daniel pushed his maneuvering pack to full power. It was not fast, but it was the best he could do. His suit's computer told him the numbers. Falling pod at 300 meters distance. 200. 100. The pod was getting close to the burn line. Daniel could see it starting to glow. Red heat was touching its metal skin. He pushed harder, using every bit of power in his maneuvering pack. 50 meters. 30. 20. Daniel reached out his arm as hard as he could. His fingers touched the pod. It was hot. Very hot. He grabbed it anyway, pulling it to him. With his other hand, he pulled out a safety line from his suit and tied it to the pod's handle. Then he used his maneuvering pack to turn them both back toward the ship. The transport was moving toward them. He could see it getting bigger. The open airlock was like a mouth waiting to swallow them. Daniel pulled the pod close and made sure the line was tight. His arms burned from the heat of the pod. His suit was damaged from the heat, but he held on. He did not let go. The airlock came closer. Daniel felt strong hands grab him. His soldiers were pulling him and the pod inside. He felt the warmth of the ship around him. The airlock door closed behind them with a hard sound. The chamber filled with air. Daniel fell to the ground, breathing hard inside his suit. His team was around him, checking to see if he was hurt. Daniel did not care about his own pain. He pushed himself up and moved to the escape pod. His hand shook as he opened the latch. Inside, covered in emergency blankets and wrapped in safety straps, was a small figure. A child. An alien child. The child had silver hair that caught the light. Her skin was pale blue. Her eyes were large and bright. She was sleeping, protected by the pod's emergency systems. Daniel knew this child was important. Something about her told him this was not just any Valorian. The features, the way she looked, the quality of her clothing, even damaged as it was. This was someone special. Then his scanners showed him the genetic information. His computer beeped with recognition code. Daniel's face went white. He looked at his lieutenant. Marcus was reading the same data on his suit's computer. Their eyes met. They both understood. The small girl inside the pod was Princess Luris, the only child of Queen Astrea, the child of the most powerful being in this part of space. Daniel looked down at the sleeping princess. He had just done something that would change everything. He did not know it yet. He could not see the future. But in this moment, holding his breath and looking at the small alien girl, Daniel knew his life was different now. Nothing would ever be the same again. Outside the ship, in the space above Crystalis, a massive shadow was moving. A Valorian battlecruiser had seen the rescue on its sensors. The ship was moving fast toward the human transport. Its weapon systems were coming alive. The next few minutes would decide if this moment was the start of peace or the start of war. The Valorian battlecruiser did not open fire. Instead, it sent a message. The voice that came through Daniel's radio was calm and controlled. But underneath, it was something else. Power. Authority. The voice belonged to a Valorian, commander named Kess. He told Daniel to hold his position and prepare for escort. A fleet of Valorian ships was moving toward the human transport from multiple directions. Daniel told his team to stand down. There was no point in fighting. They were outnumbered 10-1. If the Valorians wanted to destroy them, they could do it in seconds. So Daniel waited. He watched the Valorian ships take position around the transport, forming a wall of military power. They did not attack. They formed a protective barrier instead. For the first time since the rescue, Daniel could breathe. He moved to the small medical bay where his doctor, a woman named Catherine, was checking on the princess. The girl was still asleep. She had been in that pod for a long time, and her body needed rest. Catherine looked up at Daniel with surprise on her face. "She is fine, Captain," Catherine said. "Strong. Healthy. Whoever built that pod knew what they were doing. This child lived because someone made sure she would survive." Daniel nodded. He thought about the Queen. A mother who had made sure her child could survive, even if everything else failed. That was love that could cross the space between worlds. The transport began to move downward, toward the surface of Chrysalis. The Valorian ship stayed close, protecting the human vessel as it entered the upper atmosphere. Daniel stood on the bridge and watched the planet grow larger. Chrysalis was beautiful. The surface was covered in tall crystal formations that caught and reflected the light from the star. The cities were built into and around these crystals, making them look like places from a dream. The landing zone was not a normal place. It was the royal platform, the place where the Queen herself walked. Daniel had never expected to land here. This was the heart of Valorian power. His transport came down with a gentle touch, guided by Valorian traffic control. When the landing struts touched the ground, Daniel felt the weight of what was about to happen. The rear door of the transport opened. Fresh air from an alien world entered the ship. Daniel took a breath. He could smell something like flowers and metal. His soldiers stood straight in their dress uniforms. Daniel held the still sleeping Princess Lyris in his arms. Catherine walked beside him, ready to help if the child needed care. What Daniel saw outside made him stop moving. Hundreds of Valorians stood on the landing platform. Soldiers in armor, nobles in decorated clothing. And standing at the center of them all was a figure so tall and impressive that Daniel could not look away. Queen Astrea was nearly 3 meters tall. Her skin was the color of starlight, pale and bright. Her hair was like silver water that flowed down her back. Her eyes were large and dark, and they held the power of a ruler who had made decisions that affected millions of beings. She wore a robe made of something that looked like crystallized light. When she moved, the robe moved with her like it was alive. The Queen looked at the human captain. She looked at the child in his arms. For a moment, nothing moved. No sound came from the hundreds of Valorians standing on the platform. Then the Queen's eyes changed. Something broke inside her. Her face showed pure feeling, something raw and true. Tears began to fall from her eyes. Daniel had never seen a Valorian cry before. He did not know they could. But Queen Astrea was crying now. Not from sadness. From joy. From relief. From a mother's gratitude that her child was alive. The Queen moved toward Daniel. She walked with purpose, her steps fast and sure. Her guards did not stop her. The nobles stepped back to let her pass. She came to Daniel and looked down at him. Then she placed her hands on his shoulders. It was a gesture that meant something important in Valorian culture. Daniel could feel the weight of her hands. She was strong enough to hurt him, but her touch was gentle. "You saved my child," the Queen said. Her voice was deep and filled with power. "You risked your life for someone you did not know. Someone from a different world. A different kind of being. You did this without being asked. Without expecting a reward." Daniel did not know what to say. He held the princess carefully. The girl was starting to wake up. Her eyes were opening. She looked up at her mother, and the Queen made a sound of joy that echoed across the platform. The Queen took her daughter from Daniel's arms. She held the princess close to her chest. She closed her eyes and held the child like she would never let go. All the Valorians on the platform bowed their heads in respect. They understood. A mother had gotten her child back. When the Queen opened her eyes again, she looked at Daniel with tears still falling. "From this moment forward, you are not just a human delegate," the Queen said. "You are family to the Valorian people. What can I give you? What can I do to show you the depth of my gratitude?" Daniel started to speak, but the Queen raised her hand. She had already decided what she would do. You will come to the Grand Stellar Hall, the Queen said. You will stand before the entire Valorian Empire. You will receive the Medal of Crystalline Valor. No being from outside our world has ever received this honor. But you have earned it. You have shown us what it means to be brave. You have shown us that honor and courage exist among all beings, no matter how different we are. The Queen turned to walk away, still holding her daughter. She looked back one more time at Daniel. Thank you, she said simply. Thank you for giving me back my heart. The ceremony happened 3 days later. The Grand Stellar Hall was so big that Daniel could not see the far walls. Thousands of Valorians filled the hall, standing in perfect rows. They wore their finest clothes and their formal armor. They stood in silence as Daniel walked down the center path toward the throne where Queen Ashria waited. The Queen herself placed the medal around Daniel's neck. The medal was made from actual crystal, cut and shaped from the stone of Crystallis itself. It was worth more money than most humans would see in their entire lives. But that was not why it mattered. It mattered because it meant the Queen and all of her people believed in what Daniel had done. When the medal was in place, every single Valorian in the hall bowed deeply. They bowed not as subjects to a superior, but as warriors and nobles honoring one of their own. The sound of all those beings bowing at once was like thunder. That night, Princess Lyris came to Daniel's room in the royal palace. She was awake now, and she moved with the careful grace of a child raised in power and wealth. She was not afraid of the human. She walked up to Daniel and looked up at him with her large, bright eyes. "My mother says you saved my life," the princess said. Her voice was soft but clear. "She says you did not have to. You could have left me." Daniel knelt down so he was closer to the child's level. "I could not leave you," he said. "You needed help. So I helped. That is what we do. We help each other. It does not matter where we come from." The princess smiled. "Then I will always remember you," she said. "And when I am old enough to rule, I will make sure the humans are never forgotten. My mother has made a peace treaty with your people because of what you did. You changed the future." Daniel realized that the child was right. He had done something that would echo through time and space. A single act of kindness and courage had changed the course of history. News of Daniel's rescue spread across the galaxy like a fire burning through dry wood. The story was simple and powerful. A human soldier had saved the child of an alien queen. He had risked everything and asked for nothing in return. Every news network reported it. Every planet heard about it. Daniel became famous overnight. On Earth, people celebrated him. Governments wanted to meet him. Citizens wore his face on their shirts and carried his image on screens. Leaders called him a hero and a symbol of human courage. Universities wanted him to speak to their students. Military officers wanted to study his tactics and his decisions. Daniel did not feel like a hero. He only felt like a man who had done what was right. But he understood that his actions had meaning beyond himself. Not everyone on Earth was happy about this, though. Some people were afraid. They worried that humans should not get so close to aliens. They thought that getting involved with the Valorians might hurt Earth in the long run. Some military leaders were upset that Daniel had made decisions without following proper channels. They said he had risked the entire human mission by acting on his own. There were meetings and arguments about what Daniel had done. But in the end, the people who supported him were louder than those who opposed him. The Valorian Empire was different. Queen Astria had made her decision about the humans, and that decision was final. She had signed a peace treaty with Earth. She had given human traders access to Valorian ports and markets. She had opened Valorian knowledge to human scientists. These were gifts worth trillions of credits. All because of Daniel. But there was a problem. Not everyone in the galaxy was happy about this new friendship between humans and Valorians. The Krell, Collective ruled a large area of space to the east of Valorian territory. The Krell were fierce warriors and traders. They had dominated this part of space for thousands of years. They believed that the Valorians should answer to them, or at least respect their power. When news came that the Valorians had made peace with humans, the Krell leaders became angry. The Krell sent messages to Queen Astrea. The messages were not kind. They said that the Valorians were making a mistake. They said that humans were weak and could not be trusted. They said that if the Valorians continued to work with humans, there would be a price to pay. The messages were clear warnings. War was coming. Queen Astrea called Daniel to a private meeting. She sat on her throne, and Daniel stood before her. The queen's face was serious and hard. She had the look of a ruler who was about to give orders that would change lives. The Krell have made their position clear, the queen said. They see our peace with humanity as a threat to their power. They are mobilizing their military forces. Our intelligence shows they are preparing for an attack. They believe they can defeat us because they underestimate the strength of our alliance with your people. Daniel nodded. He had expected this. Powerful beings did not like changes to the order they controlled. I have a request for you, the queen continued. I need a human and a Valorian to work together to prepare for what is coming. I need someone who understands both our peoples. Someone who can make us work as one. I am asking you to lead our combined military forces, Captain Daniel Hayes. I am asking you to be the bridge between our worlds when battle comes. Daniel did not hesitate. I will do this, he said. I will not let them hurt your people. The queen stood up. She walked down from her throne and placed her hand on Daniel's shoulder. Then let us prepare for war, she said. Daniel moved to a military command center that was built beneath the crystal cities of Crystalis. The center was huge and complex. Thousands of Valorian officers worked there, managing ships and soldiers across a vast territory. Daniel had to learn how they thought. He had to understand their tactics and their culture. It was not easy. Many Valorians were skeptical of taking orders from a human. But they obeyed because the queen had commanded it. Daniel brought in human, military advisors from the ships that had come with him. These advisors were skilled in strategy and tactics. They brought new ideas to the Valorian command structure. Some Valorian commanders resisted these ideas. But Daniel insisted. He said that the strength of their alliance would come from combining human and Valorian methods. Daniel spent time with Princess Lyris during this period. The young girl would visit his command quarters in the evenings. She would sit in a chair and watch him work on maps and strategy plans. Sometimes she would ask questions about human thinking. Sometimes she would share what she had learned about Valorian philosophy and beliefs. Are you afraid? The princess asked one evening. She was looking at the maps of the Krell territory spread out on Daniel's table. Daniel considered the question carefully. Yes, he said. I am afraid. But fear is not weakness. Fear is a signal that something important is at stake. When I am afraid, I work harder. I think more carefully. I make better decisions. The princess nodded like she understood. My mother says that you are unlike any human she expected to meet, the princess said. She thought humans were a lesser species. But you have shown her that humans have gifts the Valorians do not. You think differently. You move faster. You take risks that we would not take. And Valorians have gifts too, Daniel said. You have discipline and knowledge. You have patience and power. When we work together, we are stronger than either of us could be alone. The princess smiled. It was the smile of a young being who was beginning to understand the world. Days turned into weeks. Daniel and his team of human advisors created a new kind of military strategy. It was not purely Valorian and not purely human. It was something new. It used speed and adaptability. It used innovative thinking and bold action. It combined this with Valorian strength and discipline and knowledge. Daniel trained Valorian soldiers to think like humans. He taught them to improvise and to take risks when it was necessary. His human soldiers trained to fight like Valorians, to use formation tactics, and to coordinate with precision. Slowly, a unified force began to take shape. Queen Ashria presented Daniel with a special gift. She gave him command of an elite unit of Valorian warriors. These warriors were the best fighters in the entire Valorian military. They had trained for decades. They had fought in dozens of conflicts. Their commander was a Valorian named Theron, who had served the Queen for 40 years. When the Queen told Theron that he would follow Daniel's orders, the Valorian commander showed no emotion. He simply bowed and said, "As the Queen commands, I will serve." But something in his eyes told Daniel that this was a test. Theron would follow Daniel's orders, but he would be watching. He would be evaluating. If Daniel proved himself weak, Theron would say so. Daniel did not try to be different around Theron. He simply gave orders and expected them to be followed. He treated Theron with respect as a fellow warrior. He listened to Theron's ideas and sometimes used them. Theron was a skilled commander, and Daniel was smart enough to learn from him. Over time, Theron's skepticism turned into something else: respect. The Valorian commander began to see that Daniel was a true warrior. Daniel understood tactics and strategy. He understood how to keep soldiers alive while achieving goals. He was not afraid to make hard decisions. One evening, after a training exercise, Theron approached Daniel on the training ground. The Valorian was covered in dust from the day's work. He looked at Daniel and spoke with a formal tone. "You are a worthy commander," Theron said. "I did not expect this when the Queen first gave you command over me and my warriors. But I was wrong to doubt. You have the heart of a true warrior. You will lead us to victory or you will die trying. Both are honorable outcomes." Daniel extended his hand. Theron took it. In that gesture, the bond between human and Valorian solidified into something real and unbreakable. The time for waiting was ending. Intelligence reports showed that the Krull forces were almost ready. They were gathering their ships and soldiers at a staging point near the border between their space and Valorian space. Within days, they would attack. Daniel stood in the command center and looked at the map showing Krull positions. He looked at the forces under his command. Valorian ships and soldiers, human fighters and advisors, all waiting for his orders, all ready to fight. Daniel knew that the next battle would determine more than just territory. It would determine whether humans and Valorians could truly fight as one. It would determine whether the alliance that had been born from a single act of kindness could survive the test of war. The Krull attack came in the early morning hours. Daniel was in the command center when the alarms began to sound. The screens showed enemy ships crossing the border into Valorian space. The ships were large and well-armed. There were hundreds of them. The Krull were not coming to talk. They were coming to destroy. Daniel did not panic. He had prepared for this moment. He had gamed out the scenarios 1,000 times. He had trained his forces until they could move together like a single organism. He stood up from his command chair and spoke with a clear, strong voice. "All units, this is command. Execute Defense Plan Alpha. I repeat, execute Defense Plan Alpha. Valorian ships move to intercept position. Human fighter squadrons, you are green light to launch. Move now." The response was immediate. Across dozens of ships and stations, officers and soldiers heard the command and began to move. The Valorian fleet began its movement toward the enemy forces. The human fighter pilots climbed into their ships and strapped themselves in. Ground crews moved with speed and precision, fueling ships and loading weapons. Daniel had made a choice that was unusual and bold. He was going to keep diplomatic channels open during the battle. Most military commanders believed that war and diplomacy did not mix. But Daniel thought differently. He told his communications officer, a human woman named Nicole, to send a message to the Krell command ship. Nicole hesitated for just a moment. "Sir, is this wise?" "Send the message," Daniel said. Nicole began to speak into her communication device. Her voice was calm and professional. The message went out to the Krell fleet on all open channels. "This is the combined human-Valorian command. We do not wish to fight you. We seek only peace and coexistence. The humans and Valorians stand unified. We are prepared to defend our space and our people. But we offer you one final opportunity. Withdraw your forces now, and we will discuss peace. Proceed with your attack, and we will give you no other choice." For a moment, there was silence on the communication channels. Then a Krell voice responded. The voice was harsh and filled with contempt. "You are fools," the Krell commander said. "You have allied yourselves with a weak species. Humans are fragile and short-lived. They break easily. We will crush your alliance like crystal breaking under pressure. We will show the galaxy what happens when you defy the Krell collective." The Krell ships opened fire. Space erupted into violence and light. Laser beams cut through the darkness. Missiles flew from ship to ship. The Valorian fleet moved to meet the Krell assault. The ships came together in a massive battle formation. This was traditional Krell and Valorian combat. Large ships fighting large ships. Heavy armor against heavy weapons. But Daniel had learned from studying human history. The biggest and strongest did not always win. Often, the side that adapted and innovated faster was the one that survived. Daniel gave his next order. Launch all human fighter squadrons. Do not engage the large ships. Find gaps in their formation. Target communication systems and shield generators. Use your speed. Use your mobility. Make them think about what you are doing. The human fighters launched from their launch base. There were 300 of them. They were smaller and less heavily armed than Krell fighters. But they were faster. They were more agile. And the humans who flew them had been trained to think creatively. They had been taught to see problems and find solutions that others would not think of. The fighter pilots cut through the Krell formation like sharks moving through water. The Krell fighters tried to intercept them, but the human pilots were too fast, too unpredictable. One human pilot named Victor dove his fighter directly at a Krell battleship, getting closer than any standard pilot would ever get. At the last second, he fired his missiles at the ship's shield generators and peeled away. The generators failed. The battleship's shields dropped. Behind him, 3 Valorian attack craft moved in and struck with precision. The Krell commander had assumed that the humans would be weak and easy to defeat. This had been his first mistake. His second mistake was underestimating how well the humans and Valorians had trained together. When Krell fighters tried to break through the Valorian defense lines, human bombers appeared from unexpected angles and scattered them. When Valorian capital ships needed protection, human fast attack craft provided it. The two species were working together with a synchronization that no one had believed was possible, but the battle was far from won. The Krell had more ships and more firepower. As the hours passed, the combined human-Valorian force was losing ground. Valorian ships were damaged and destroyed. Human pilots were being lost. The commanders on both sides were taking losses they could not afford to replace quickly. Daniel knew what he had to do. It was the most dangerous thing he could do. It was the move that violated every rule of military command. But it was the only move that could win the battle. "Theron," Daniel said to the Valorian commander, "I am taking a small fighter team to the Krell command ship. I am going to disable their systems from the inside. When I do this, their ship will be vulnerable. That is when you attack with everything you have. Can you time it perfectly?" Theron's eyes widened. "You will die, Captain." The security on the Krell command ship is impossible to overcome. Maybe, Daniel said. But I've been training in their ship designs. I know how they think. I know their patterns. And I am willing to take the risk. Can you do this? Theron nodded slowly. I will be ready, he said. Daniel climbed into a small fighter craft. Behind him, 5 other human pilots climbed into their ships. These were his best pilots, the ones who understood his thinking. Together, they moved their fighters toward the Krell command ship. The Krell did not expect an attack on their command vessel. They thought it was too well protected. They thought no one would be crazy enough to try it. This was their third and final mistake. Daniel's fighter moved through the Krell, defenses like a knife moving through cloth. He had studied the layout of Krell ships for weeks. He knew exactly where the weaknesses were. He knew where the sensor networks had gaps. His pilots followed his lead, and together they penetrated deeper into the enemy defenses. Then they were inside. Daniel's fighter entered the launch bay of the command ship. His supporting pilots stayed outside to provide cover. Daniel ejected from his fighter as soon as it touched ground. He moved through the ship using routes he had memorized. His suit was equipped with computer hacking tools. He had studied Krell technology for weeks with human experts and Valorian allies. He found the main control center. Krell warriors tried to stop him, but Daniel was fast and strong. The suit was built to make humans dangerous in combat. He moved through the Krell defenses like water flowing around stones. When he reached the central computer core, he planted the device that would disable the command ship's weapons and shields. The explosion was small, but it was perfect. The command ship's systems went dark. Its weapons stopped firing. Its shields shut down. From his position on the ship, Daniel looked out a viewscreen. He saw the Valorian fleet move. Theron had been watching. The moment the command ship lost power, the Valorian commander attacked. The Krell command vessel took hits from a dozen Valorian capital ships all at once. Daniel ran. He had maybe 30 seconds before the ship's destruction became inevitable. He moved back through the corridors, following his mental map. Behind him, fires broke out. The ship was falling apart. His suit's computer told him the oxygen levels were dropping. He reached the launch bay as the gravity systems failed. He pulled himself into a small escape pod. His fingers found the launch button. The pod fired out of the dying ship just as the command ship exploded in a ball of fire. The Krell fleet saw their command ship destroyed. They saw their commander dead. They realized that this battle was not going the way they had planned. The human and Valorian forces were not breaking. They were getting stronger. They were fighting harder. One by one, the Krell ships began to withdraw. The ones that had been damaged too badly tried to escape. The ones that were still fighting began to pull back. Within minutes, the battle was over. The Krell fleet was in retreat, moving away from Valorian space as fast as their ships could move. Daniel's escape pod was picked up by a Valorian rescue ship. When the hatch opened, Theron himself was there to greet him. The Valorian commander looked at the human captain with something close to awe in his eyes. "You are insane," Theron said, "and you are the greatest warrior I have ever known." Daniel laughed. It was the laugh of a man who had just survived something that should have killed him. "We won," he said simply. "Yes," Theron agreed. "We won. Because you showed us that humans and Valorians can be more than allies. We can be brothers." Word of the battle spread across the galaxy. The Human-Valorian Alliance had defeated the Krell Collective. They had won through innovation, courage, and unity. News networks reported every detail. Every planet heard how humans and Valorians had fought side by side. Every species understood that a new power had emerged in the galaxy. But more importantly, the battle had proven something else. It had proven that different species could work together. It had proven that mercy and wisdom could be stronger than violence and conquest. It had proven that a single human soldier's act of kindness could change the course of history and the future of worlds. The weeks after the battle were filled with celebration and work. The Krell had signed a peace agreement within days of their retreat. They had lost too much. They had paid a price they could not recover from quickly. The Krell Collective still ruled their territory, but they no longer believed that they could expand it through force against the humans and Valorians. Earth's government called Daniel home. They wanted to honor him in the way humans honored their greatest heroes. A ship was prepared to take him back to his home world. But before he left, Queen Astrea summoned him to the throne room one final time. The queen sat on her throne, with Princess Lyris standing beside her. The young girl had grown and changed since the rescue. She was still only a child, but she was beginning to show the qualities that would make her a great ruler someday. She looked at Daniel with the kind of respect that usually took decades to earn. The queen stood and descended from her throne. She came to Daniel and placed her hands on his shoulders, just as she had done on the landing platform after the rescue. But this time, something different was happening. "Captain Daniel Hayes," the queen said, "you have saved my child. You have defended my people. You have changed the destiny of our empire. Now I wish to offer you something that no human has ever received. I wish to make you a permanent member of the Valorian military structure. You will hold the rank of Grand Admiral. You will be the supreme commander of all joint human-Valorian military operations. No being from another species has ever held such a position, but you have earned it through your actions and your character." Daniel tried to protest, but the queen raised her hand. "There is more," she said. "I am establishing the Daniel Hayes Institute for Interspecies Understanding and Cooperation. This institute will be built on a station orbiting in neutral space between our worlds. It will be a place where humans and Valorians can study together. It will be a place where young beings from both species can learn to understand each other. It will be a place where the friendship that was born when you saved my daughter can grow and become stronger with each generation. I am asking you to be the first director of this institute." The ceremony to honor Daniel took place in the Grand Stellar Hall once again. But this time, the hall was even more crowded. Humans had come from Earth. Valorians from across the Empire had gathered. Even some Krell representatives were present, watching to understand what had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Daniel stood alone in the center of the hall as the queen approached. She was carrying a new insignia. It was made of white metal and contained symbols from both human and Valorian cultures. The insignia showed a human and a Valorian standing together, with light shining around them. The queen placed the insignia on Daniel's chest. As she did this, the entire assembly stood and raised their hands in the Valorian gesture of supreme honor. Then, one by one, they began to bow. Not a small bow, a deep, full bow that showed complete respect and acknowledgement. When the ceremony was finished, Daniel moved through the crowd. Soldiers and nobles came to speak with him. Military officers wanted to discuss strategy and tactics. Diplomats wanted to discuss trade and cooperation. Scientists wanted to discuss technology and knowledge sharing. Everyone wanted a moment with the man who had changed the galaxy. But the moment Daniel valued most came from Princess Lyris. The young girl found him in a quieter section of the hall. She was dressed in formal clothing that showed her status as a royal heir. But her face still had the light of youth in it. "Captain Daniel," she said formally. Then she smiled and spoke more casually. "Or should I call you Grand Admiral now?" Daniel laughed. "You can call me whatever you like, Princess. You always will be." Lyris took his hand. "I wanted to thank you again," she said. "Not just for saving my life, but for everything that came after. My mother told me about what you did in the battle. You risked your life to save our people. That is the definition of a true hero." "I just did what needed to be done," Daniel said. "No," Lyris said, shaking her head. You did more than that. You showed me that the greatest strength comes not from weapons or power, but from caring about others. You cared about me enough to risk death. You cared about the Valorian people enough to lead them in battle. That is what I will remember. That is what I will try to become when I rule the Empire. Daniel knelt down to the princess's level. You will be a great queen, he said. You will rule with wisdom and compassion. And you will remember that different beings can work together. You will remember that humans and Valorians can stand as equals. Lyris handed him something. It was a pendant made of crystal, the same crystal as the Medal of Valor. She had cut it from the royal stores, and it was crafted with great care. This connects us forever, the princess said. When you look at it, remember that you will always have a friend among the Valorians. No matter how far away you go, no matter how much time passes, this will bind us together. 2 months later, Daniel stood in the command center of the new institute. The station was beautiful, built with both human and Valorian engineering. It orbited in the neutral zone between the two civilizations. From the main observation deck, Daniel could see the lights of both human and Valorian space. The first class of students had arrived. There were 40 humans and 40 Valorians. Young beings from both species who would spend the next 4 years learning about each other's cultures, science, philosophy, and way of life. Some of them were nervous about being around aliens. Some of them were excited. All of them were beginning a journey that would change their lives. Daniel had hired both human and Valorian teachers. He had created a curriculum that showed the best of both civilizations. He had built classrooms and research laboratories. He had created dormitories where students from both species could live together and learn from each other daily. On the first day of classes, Daniel stood before all the students in the main assembly hall. He looked out at the faces of humans and Valorians, young and old, excited and nervous. He thought about everything that had happened: the rescue, the honor, the battle, the victory. Welcome to the Daniel Hayes Institute, he said. You are here because you believe that beings from different worlds can understand each other. You are here because you believe that cooperation is stronger than conflict. You are here because you believe that the future can be better than the past. Daniel paused. He pulled out the crystal pendant that Princess Lyris had given him. This pendant was given to me by the princess of the Valorian Empire, he continued. It was given to me as a symbol that we can be friends across the vastness of space. That we can be family even though we are born on different worlds. This institute exists for the same reason. It exists to create connections. It exists to build friendships. It exists to show that the galaxy is a place where beings can grow together instead of tearing each other apart. The students listened in silence. Some of them would leave this institute and become teachers themselves. Some would become scientists or military officers. Some would become diplomats who would help build new alliances. All of them would carry the lesson that different beings could work together. 3 years later, the news came that changed everything again. Queen Ashria had been killed in an accident. The throne had passed to Princess Lyris. At only 17 years old, she was the youngest ruler the Valorian Empire had ever had. The doubters said she was too young. The critics said she could not handle the responsibility. But the new Queen Lyris remembered the lessons of her childhood. She remembered the human captain who had saved her life. She remembered the battle where humans and Valorians fought together. She remembered the institute that Daniel had built to bring her people together with humanity. One of Queen Lyris's first official acts was to strengthen the alliance with Earth even more. She created new trade agreements. She opened Valorian universities to human students. She made Daniel a permanent advisor to the throne, a position of great honor and responsibility. Daniel was standing in his office at the institute when he received a message from Queen Lyris. She wanted him to come to the royal palace on Chrysalis. She had something important to discuss. When Daniel arrived, he found the queen sitting on her throne. But she stood up when he entered, which was not protocol. Queens did not stand for their subjects. But Lyris considered Daniel much more than a subject. "Daniel," she said, using his first name in private audience, "I have been thinking about our future. The alliance between our peoples must be strong and permanent. I want to create something that will bind us together forever. I want to establish the Treaty of Chrysalis. It will be a formal declaration that humans and Valorians will always stand together. No force in the galaxy will be able to tear us apart." Daniel nodded. "That is a great goal, Your Majesty," he said. "There is more," Lyris said. "I want the treaty to be signed in front of the entire galaxy. I want leaders from every species to witness it. I want it to become a symbol of what is possible when different beings choose cooperation instead of conflict. And I want you to stand beside me as it is signed, not as a subordinate, but as an equal partner. That is where you belong." Daniel stood before Queen Lyris, no longer young, but still strong. He had started as a soldier. He had become a bridge between worlds. He had shown that one act of kindness